Hello and welcome everyone to the In Focus series of Drishti IAS English. My name is Pragya. In today's episode, we have a very important topic to discuss. The title of our today's discussion is the Vaikom Satyagraha. So in this discussion, we are firstly going to study about the early 20th century Travancore because it will give you a historical background behind the Vaikom Satyagraha. Then we are also going to examine the road to agitation. Then we are also going to study about the Vaikom Satyagraha, and lastly we are going to discuss a practice question for your prelims examination and a practice question for your mains examination. So if I talk about the background of our today's topic, so March 30, 2024 marks the 100th year of this Viakom Satyagraha. And we are celebrating this 24-25 as the 100 years of the successful completion of this Viakom Satyagraha. And this movement was very pivotal in nature in bringing about the social reforms, as well as it acted as a litmus test for the Gandhiji's principle of Satyagraha. So this brings us to the important point of our today's discussion, that what was the historical scenario in the early 20th century Travancore. So if you talk about the province of Travancore in the early 20th century, the government was very feudal, militaristic and ruthless in nature, and it was also based on the caste system. Okay. So the caste system was very prevalent in the princely state of Travancore in the early 20th century. And this system of caste, that is the system of untouchability as well. Okay, so the idea of untouchability was based not only on touch but also on sight. Okay, and there were restrictions for the marginalized caste on entering the temples. Not only this, the roads which were leading to these temples were also not allowed for them to use. Okay, moving forward. Then in the 90th century, we saw unprecedented social changes. Okay, social reforms were already happening. Okay, there was a nationalist movement also that was going on, and these social reforms mainly happened due to the Christian missionaries. Okay, Christian missionaries, what did they do? They converted the lower caste people into Christianity so as to save them from the shackles of the caste system. Then the reign of Maharaja Thirunal Rama Varma from the years 1860 to 80, okay, also led to the formulation of universal free education policy. And this policy was open for the marginalized caste as well. Marginalized caste as well. So we were giving them the benefit of education, and definitely education changed a lot of things for these marginalized class people. Okay, moving forward to the 20th century. Okay, so there had begun to emerge among caste Hindus, Christians and even Avarna Hindus, especially Isavas, a significant educational elite class, because they were getting the access to education, okay, but the absolute material and intellectual deprivations of lower caste did not continue, because giving them education was not sufficient. Okay, they were being repressed by the higher caste people at that point of time, and the caste Hindus, they were repressing them socially even if they were educated in nature. Okay, moving forward. The government jobs were still reserved for the upper caste, and in 1918, caste Hindus, a numerical minority, held 3,800 out of 4,000 jobs in the state's revenue department. So just giving them education was not sufficient. They were facing discrimination from the caste Hindus, okay, and any kind of reform were resisted by these caste Hindus, okay, and the government jobs were still with the major upper caste, okay, in the early province of Travancore. Moving forward, let us examine the road to agitation, okay. So, Kesava leader T.K. Madhavan initiated the temple entry issue in 1970 through an editorial in his newspaper Deshabhimani. Okay, so this Deshabhimani, in this he wrote an editorial that yes, the temple entry restriction, because not only the temple was restricted, visiting of temple, even the roads, they could not even use the roads. Okay, just imagine there was a case study of a person who belonged to this Kesava community, because Kesava community emerged as the most educated and elite class in the untouchables at that point of time in the princely state of Travancore. So this person A, okay, had a car in the earlier 20th century, and he belonged to the Kesava community, but whenever the automobile used to cross any kind of road on which the entry of this community was barred, he had to walk barefoot despite having a car. So this was the status of discrimination against this community. He was influenced by the effectiveness of Gandhiji's non-cooperation movement and started advocating for more assertive approaches by the year 1920. So in 1920, Madhavan personally challenged the restrictions by crossing the notice board near the Vaikom temple, and this Vaikom temple was famous temple of the deity Shiva. Moving forward, then came the Indian National Congress in power. Okay, so the Kakinada session of the Indian National Congress. In this session, a very important resolution was passed by the Kerala Provincial Congress Committee to take up anti-untouchability as a key issue, and the movements against untouchability gained importance after the passing of this resolution in the Kakinada session of the Indian National Congress. In fact, in 1924, a committee was also set up. A committee was set up, okay, to abolish untouchability. And this committee resolved the Kerala Prayatnam, or the Kerala Prayatnam, okay. And in this they were arguing that the temple restrictions should be removed. Temples cannot be restricted to only upper caste people. They should have free entry for all the persons belonging to the Hindu religion, in despite their caste, creed or community. Okay, so this Kerala Prayatnam was signed by this or taken by this as a resolution by this committee that was formed in the year 1924. Moving forward, let us examine and understand the Vaikom Satyagraha. Okay, so Vaikom is a small town in Kerala and it was a temple town. The Shiva temple was very famous in this town, okay, and it was launched on March 30, 1924, and it was launched by leaders in Kerala such as T.K. Madhavan, K.P. Kesava Menon and George Joseph on the advice of Mahatma Gandhi. So it is a litmus test for the Gandhi's principles of Satyagraha, and the T.K. Madhavan, who was very influenced by the non-cooperation movement. Non-cooperation movement ended in 1925, okay, because the Gandhiji called off the movement due to the Chauri Chaura incidents, okay. So he was very influenced by the non-cooperation movement and he launched the Vaikom Satyagraha, and the main objective of this Satyagraha was to open all of the temples for the marginalized section of the society, okay. Moving forward, The Satyagrahis walked in procession towards the forbidden public roads. Okay, so initially they were arguing that, okay, even if the temple entry is restricted, do not open it for us. We'll firstly have access to those roads on which we are forbidden to use. Okay, so they started using those roads. Okay, they started walking on those roads. They wanted those roads to be opened first. Okay, they were not initially arguing for the temple entry. Okay, but what happened after this, that the major leaders were arrested by the police forces, and after a certain point of time the police stopped arresting and instead barricaded the whole area. Okay, and the Satyagrahis were conducting hunger strikes in these areas nearby these barricades that were put forward by the police. Okay, and they were following all the principles of Satyagraha. When they were trying to access these roads, they were stopped 50 yards away from the place where a board cautioning the oppressed communities against walking on the roads surrounding the Vaikom Mahadeva temple was placed, and that is why the police arrested them. Okay, but they were taking turns. Okay, the volunteers, who were belonging to the marginalized communities, they were taking turns to protest. Okay, they were taking turns to mark the entry in that road. Okay, and lately all of the leaders were arrested, and finally the whole area was barricaded. Then Mahatma Gandhi arrived at Vaikom in March 1925, and he suggested that this Vaikom Satyagraha cannot become a success until and unless it is supported by the forward castes. So he asked the Savarna community to come forward and support this Satyagraha movement in Travancore. Finally, the forward caste community joined hands with the protesters. Okay, and 25,000 signatures were obtained from the forward community of Hindus, urging to remove all kind of temple restrictions. Okay, and Gandhiji also held a series of discussions with the leaders of various caste groups and met the Maharani regent at her Varkala camp. So finally the Gandhiji urged the forward caste community to come forward and support the Vaikom Satyagraha. The support of Vaikom Satyagraha was also from the Akali Dal in Punjab. Okay, there were also many religious leaders. Okay, many national leaders were also involved in this Vaikom Satyagraha. So the Vaikom Satyagraha was officially withdrawn on November 30, 1925 after consultations between Gandhi and W.H. Pitt, who was the police commissioner of Travancore at that point of time. So if you ask me what was the impact of this Vaikom Satyagraha, okay, so the impact was very huge. It saw a large participation from women also, and finally in 1936 the temple proclamation was signed. Okay, so this temple proclamation, which was signed in the year 1936, removed the age-old tradition of not letting the lower caste community enter into the temples, and it finally said that the temples can be entered into by any person belonging to a Hindu community. So all of these restrictions were finally removed in the year 1936. So this Vaikom Satyagraha was very important. It was very successful. It continued for around 600 days, and definitely it was a very successful Satyagraha because it stood on the litmus test of the Gandhiji's principles of Satyagraha. Okay, so it was very successful in nature. With this, we come to a conclusion of our today's discussion. We have discussed the early caste system that was prevalent in the princely state of Travancore. We have also seen that what exactly led to the road to agitation. We have also analyzed the Vaikom Satyagraha, and now let us discuss a practice question from the perspective of your prelims examination. So the question is, consider the following statements. Your statement number 1 is Vaikom Satyagraha was launched in Travancore. Your statement number 2 is it was the first movement to revolutionize temple entry in India. So which of these statements given above are correct? Your options are option A is 1 only, option B is 2 only, option C is both 1 and 2, and option D is none of the above. So kindly drop your answers in the comment box below. Now let us discuss a practice question for your mains examination. So the question is, critically analyze the impact of Vaikom Satyagraha in opening temple entries for marginalized caste. So firstly, you will write about the caste system that was prevalent in the princely state of Travancore, how it was not based only on untouchability, it was also based on sight. They were not allowed to enter the temples which were considered to be pure places. Okay, they were also barred from walking on the roads that led to the temple. Then you will mention about the Vaikom Satyagraha, how it started, who were the leaders, okay. And then finally you will write that yes, it was very successful in nature because in 1936 the temple proclamation was signed, and finally all the restrictions that were there on the temple entry was removed due to the outcome of this Vaikom Satyagraha, okay. So you can conclude very holistically that yes, it is a very important chapter in our Indian history which has successfully, highlighted the problems that were being faced by the marginalized caste at that point of time, the oppression that they were facing, and definitely it was very successful in nature because it successfully threw open the temples to all of the persons who are belonging to the Hindu community. I hope this session was insightful for you. If you have any feedback regarding this session, you can drop it in the comment box below. If you liked today's discussion and found it to be helpful, kindly like the video and subscribe to our channel for more such interesting updates. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.